Hello and welcome to the week ahead. This week, very different week than the previous ones. First, I just want to go over something that's just sort of how I think about the market in general. I think that this is really, there's like a few different factors that are driving the market in different directions. And I know we've been chopping sideways for the better part of 3 months now. But, in recent days, obviously, crude oil has been driving things in a different direction. It seems like any time that crude oil is going up, the S&P is going down. And anytime that crude is going down, the S&P is going up. And you can just look at the daily, hourly charts of those two crossed over each other and you'll see exactly that. We definitely have this push-pull, which right now with crude oil on the way up, it's pulling the S&P down. And that obviously is problematic for people who want to trade long. And I'll zoom out to that chart and we'll go over it in detail in a minute. But first I want to talk about all the different things that are pulling and pushing on the S&P overall. So the S&P being this big basket of stuff. Then we have NQ, right? And NQ is basically the largest component in the S&P pie. And so, sorry, I should say the largest slice in the S&P pie. And then within NQ, the biggest piece of NQ, the largest slice, is SMH, or semiconductors. And so we have the NQ is typically the biggest driver of the S&P. And what you always find, or at least what I always find, is that for the most part, if the S&P is going up, and this is not in the normal situation we're in right now, right now we're in the situation where crude is this sort of new component, this new player in the game that's pushing things around. But normally it's NQ will lead. It'll pull the S&P up, it'll pull the S&P down, and it is the thing that is sort of controlling what's going on. Within NQ, what's causing NQ to go up and down? Well, that's SMH. That's all the semis, because that's where all the money is. And so if the semis are pulling up, that's going to pull up NQ, and that's going to pull up S&P. That's the normal thing. If the semis are going down, the semis are going to pull NQ down, and NQ is going to pull S&P down. That's typically the way that I think about the market. Now, that's not the only thing. There's lots of other components to the S&P, and NQ is just a slice of it, so there are lots of other pieces, and if they're all moving in unison, they can make S&P do stuff too. But for the most part, this is typically what I watch for, is I'm watching to see what is NQ doing, and how does that affect the S&P, and if NQ is doing something that's crazy, what is SMH doing that's causing that crazy thing to happen? And now we've got this new guy, this new kid in town who's coming in and pushing things around and affecting stuff in ways that is kind of unusual. And so that's sort of the stage for what we're about to go over in the charts. Here is the S&P daily. For a long time we were up here in this balance, and I was talking about, I wonder what's going to happen in this balance. It does look like a rounding top. And now lo and behold, we're coming down. So we do have a bunch of supports here that are coming up soon. And you might be wondering, are we going to stop there? We seem to be accelerating. Now, technically on Friday, we didn't set a lower low. We're still in the higher low situation, but the trend is definitively down. And if you zoom right into like the 4-hour time frame, so I had noticed on the 4-hour time frame that we had this sort of falling wedge type thing, and I thought, oh, that looks cool. We could, if we held this low of Thursday, we could break out of this wedge on Friday morning, and that could be a higher low. We could be setting a 12-hour higher low against this low and then head back up. So that was my like last hope for what the bulls could do. That didn't happen. You see on the 4-hour that we did go lower in the pre-market and then push up higher. Sorry, go lower in the after hours, push up in the pre-market on Friday, break that wedge, and then completely reject it and fail and come back down. And so, because this had been another thing, I thought if we do push up, you got to watch that declining 4-hour EMA 12, because that thing tends to hold price down as it did right here. So now this wedge is basically irrelevant. It's been broken to the upside and broken to the downside, so it looks like we're going lower. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to break this low right now. All it means is that as of Friday we were going lower, and right into the close, we were going lower. Anything could happen. We could gap up on Monday. I'm not saying that, we're going to crash on Monday. I have no idea what's going to happen on Monday or over the weekend. However, it's worth noting that right now, if you go to CL, we are a 4-hour rider. And so we, this whole way up back from here on at the end of Feb, we were riding the 4-hour EMA 12 and getting super extended from it. Now, what happens when you get the rubber band extended? Well, it has to retract. And when it retracts, it overshoots. And then you find your balance. And then now that we found balance, what are we doing? Riding the 4-hour EMA 12 again. So the 4-hour EMA 12 is the guide on the crude oil right now. And if that keeps happening, then I think this is going to keep happening, because that's what we're seeing, is that if crude's going up, S&P is going down. Go out to the daily. You know, there's this top over here that was hit a bunch of times as resistance and then hit from above as support. Now we're coming back in there again. And it's 1, 2, coming in for a third test now. And so I think that that's probably going to get violated if crude keeps going up, and also if as crude's going up and S&P is getting dragged down, if that also affects NQ and SMH and they start going down, like I said, they lead. So if SMH starts rolling over and that leads NQ to start rolling over, then we've got problems, and this thing is probably going to go lower. Where is it going to go? So I was just looking at where have been the supports and resistances prior to this. And if you go to the weekly time frame, it gets pretty clear pretty fast. So we had this level here that got tested from above, like I just talked about. We had this level here that got tested from above. We had this level here that got tested from above. And then the last one before that, we had this top way back here, back in 2025, before we had the big tariff tantrum rollover. And since we got above this tariff tantrum rollover high, we never tested it. So if you're just zooming out and thinking, where could we set another monthly or 2-month or whatever high or low, that does seem like a logical place for it to happen. And so I'm keeping my mind open to that being the case, and we could be coming in that far. That would be a nice clean test, and that does tend to happen. Like, look at this one over here. You know, we do tend to get these big pull-ins, a big rally above, and a big pull down back. And so that could be where we're going here. So now let's take a look at NQ on the daily. Same thing, but it's been a little bit stronger in this chop, and you can see like it didn't get as low as S&P did. It still is a higher low right now, but it's got the same sort of supports. It's a very similar looking chart. I would just say it's relatively probably a little bit stronger. And let's just say, look at this as QQQ divided by SPY. Just have a look and see. Yeah, you can see the relative strength here over the last few days. What you don't want is for this to stop. You want this relative strength to continue and for this trend to keep going up, and that to be a thing that props the market up if you want it to be bullish. Personally, I actually wouldn't mind if this gave up the ghost and rolled over a little bit. So is that going to happen? What's going to make QQQ become weaker than SPY? Well, there's one thing I can think of, and that's SMH. So let's take a look at the SMH. So it actually looks pretty good still. It did not come as low as any of the others. It held up pretty well on Friday and even on Thursday. And I was trading this thing trying to get long. I bought this dip on Thursday with pretty decent size, and then ended up taking some off into the bounce and ended up stopping out into the close. I didn't want to hold it overnight when it was showing weakness. And then of course rallied the next morning. I should have held it overnight, but no, then it just dropped again anyway. I tried to trade this long again on Friday. It did not have a successful trade. Got my risk off and then ended up getting stopped out, and now balancing at the lows. Not going lower, not doing what ES did, not doing what NQ did and going lower, just sort of bouncing sideways. So trying to hold on. What's driving SMH? Well, the big daddy is NVIDIA, and NVIDIA is in this sideways choppy range still. Very difficult stock to trade lately because it has no follow through in either direction. And it's not even like it's a proper range. It's just sort of all over the place. Like, there's definitely tops, there's definitely bottoms, but it's not going from top to bottom to top to bottom to top to bottom. It's sort of chopping around within here erratically. And so not the funnest range to play, not anything you can trade for a swing, and I don't really know what it's going to do, frankly. I have no idea at all. You might look at this and see head and shoulders, but this is an all-time high. I don't like talking head and shoulders at all-time highs. This could just be balanced until there's another rally up. So I don't really have any clues for what SMH is going to do. And to me, it looks pretty good still. We did lose this weekly EMA 12 over the last 2 weeks, but I mean, it's still holding EMA 26. This is still a bullish chart. You know, this could be a bull flag up here that just breaks to continuation. So we're not even anywhere near. We could still pull back big time to the monthly EMA 12 and keep going up. So This is a very bullish chart. I'm not bearish at all on semis, and I don't see them dragging down the market anytime soon, but even a little bit of pullback just to get to the monthly EMA 12 could definitely have an effect on the NASDAQ. So that's where we stand. In the meantime, the big question is, where is the strength? Where's the strength in the market? I spend a lot of time thinking about this, and I spend a lot of time looking at stocks and grouping them into themes and tracking those themes. I talked about this recently, that I'm working on this application, which is purpose-built to help groups of traders track the strong themes in the market and the strong stocks within those themes and the time frames that they are riding, so we can identify spots that we can get long and trade them. Now, technically, this doesn't just mean long, and we do have the ability in the system to start tracking things in a downtrend as well. And so if that happens, if the market does start to pull in and start to go down, I can see this chart or this page starting to flip and a lot of these boxes turning red. And instead of having uptrend healthy, we're going to have downtrend healthy. And we're going to be looking for 4-hour lower highs and daily lower highs and tracking things as they go down and looking for things that have momentum down. And we're going to make money in either direction. It doesn't really matter to me. So I'm actually open to whichever way the market wants to go. Right now, I'm just like, I'm still in bull mode because I have not given up on this market, and there still are things that are strong. As you can see, the number one thing here is energy. Energy had a great week. And if you just take a look at XLE, I thought this thing was going to roll over into Tuesday of this week. It was showing weakness, but it held this rider, pushed back up, super, super strong. And if I jump over to my rider list and show you some of those names I was just looking at, let's take a look at Oxy. Look at this, pushing up and super strong, holding the rider, continuing up. XOM, honestly, this I thought was going to be over as well, and here it held. It didn't hold daily EMA 12, so the rider broke, and the only rider that's currently holding that I'm aware of is the weekly EMA 12, and so we're way above that, so this is a difficult one for me to trade because I don't have a good spot to get long, but looks really good. VLO, looking really good, holding daily EMA 12, pushing up, and of course, USO, or crude oil, super, super strong, and this is actually that 4-hour rider I was talking about. So, obviously energy and oil-related names are doing really well. Then there's lots of other ones here that I've been tracking, and some of them starting to roll over. So I'm going to talk about some of those. Wheat has been moving with energy. So this is a crazy chart on the daily. It's continuing up. This daily EMA 12 is holding. This is wheat. I don't recommend trading this, but if you're trading wheat futures, ZW, then super, super strong trend happening there right now. AAOI, this is a signal because this thing had been rallying super hard. This is like the leader of tech optics, and this had been leading. GLW and LITE or others, but they're all rolling over now. So this is one of the spots in the market that was super strong and now is starting to give some back. And so just a signal that there has been rotation out of things, and I'm not seeing a lot of fresh rotation into things except for energy. The only other strong parts of the market that I'm still watching are memory stocks. SNDK, super strong, held this 4-day EMA 12. MU held the weekly EMA 12. I think I talked about these in the last weekend's video, and had super bullish weeks. And if you look at SNDK, I'll put my drawings back on, go to the 4-hour time frame. After we got this hold of the 4-day here, I was talking last weekend about how I wanted to get a 4-hour higher low. Or was it last weekend or during the week? Must have been during the week. And it didn't. It just kept going. And this is the first 4-hour higher low it really gave. It's probably actually a 12-hour higher low into Thursday afternoon. And then Friday, rally hard. Markets rolling over, pushing down really hard all day. SNDK notably so strong all day. It was crazy. MU also strong. Same thing. MU has earnings coming up on Wednesday next week, and so that's obviously going to drive the direction that these are going to go. It would not surprise me if these things keep going up. This has got 700 to contend with right up here, so it seems likely that this is going to touch 700 before the earnings of MU. Okay, other things really quick. Netflix did set a potential daily higher low at daily EMA 12. I think if it wasn't for the weakness in the market on Friday, this probably would have rallied much stronger and kept moving up from here. I tried to get long this thing Thursday and Friday, but it was such a choppy action that I couldn't do it. And if you look at the 30-minute on Friday, you see, if you bought the open, you would have gotten stopped out. And then the whole market was weak. This was a tough buy if you were going to do it. And then rally into the close. That's why it closed so high, was this last little candle in the day. And then, of course, rolling over in the after hours. So I don't know. I think Netflix might need the market to sort of get a bit of a bounce for this thing to carry on. But that means, like, tech software overall, IGV, has this 4-hour falling wedge that I've been watching. Or is it an hourly? I can't remember. Hourly? Yeah, it's hourly falling wedge. And it's scouting a daily higher low. And I was looking at this trying to figure out where could it try to find this bounce. And it had this balance from over here that I was watching that goes all the way back. There's all this balance that happened here. So I was kind of looking for that to hold somewhere in there. And yeah, I mean, based on this, where this wedge goes just here on the hourly and the retracement of the entire move up, you know, it looks to me like it's going to land somewhere above the 50%, which means, you know, probably balance and then possibly going up. So this is the other spot that I'm watching. But I will say that a bunch of the names within IGV that I was expecting to set daily higher lows did not, and they've all been going lower. So IGV is still trying to hold on. And if it can set that daily higher low, then there is some possible strength in the market that's going to roll in next week. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think if IGV rolls over, and SMH rolls over, and then NQ rolls over, you know, then we're in that situation where once tech weakens and starts to come down, then we really might see a speed up of the movement to the downside. Okay, so a quick recap. We've got the S&P, the man in the middle in the tug of war, getting pulled down by crude oil, which is typically led by NQ, which is typically led by SMH. If SMH rolls over, that pulls NQ down, and if NQ pulls down, it's going to pull down S&P. All these factors in play, and I'm just kind of watching all of the players in the game as we go throughout each day, specifically watching SMH, NQ, and crude oil to see how is that affecting the S&P and what's going on, and how, you know, what we got to be watching out for and aware of what could happen in the market. Okay, that's it for me. I hope you guys have a great week and happy trading. Hey, if you like my indicators on TradingView and you like the content I'm producing here on this channel, please remember to like and subscribe.